Hello and welcome to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. I am your host, Leon Wolf, and we are delighted that you have decided to join us tonight. We have a somewhat diminished panel of hosts tonight, as we fired Scott Linscomb, quite frankly. He was not up to snuff. His contributions were terrible in every respect, and we found him more or less to be an unreliable employee in addition to not providing any quality to the program. So Scott is gone for good. We are still looking for his replacement at this time. Please send your applications along with fat envelopes full of cash to Leon at RedState if you would like to join the program and contribute to this fine show for free. But we are delighted to have back with us, filling in for Neil Dewing, we have Jay Caruso, who is one of the original hosts of BATF, has back with us for the first time in months. Jay, thank you for being with us tonight.
Sure.
Bill McMorris of the Washington Free Beacon. Glad to have him back as always. And Aaron Gardner is producing for us and doing a great job as always, as I can see the window that he's got going on. Jeff Blehar, the Ace of Spades decision desk, with the kind of upside-down face covering the giant, well, I won't say what that looks like on his wall, but there it is. Jeff will be back with us. And we're delighted to have a very special guest, radio host Pete Kaliner of WWNC in North Carolina. I have lost many hours of my life, it seems like, filling time on Pete's radio show, and so I've called in a favor, and we're glad to have Pete with us tonight. So, Pete, as our guest, the first question goes to you, as is our tradition here on the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. So we heard a lot about kind of a surprise issue in New Hampshire was the epidemic of heroin addiction that has gripped the state and apparently is much worse than anyone thought. Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, winners in New Hampshire. What other possible explanation can there be than the terrible heroin addiction problem that we heard about there in that state?
None. It's just a case study in long-term drug abuse, obviously. I mean, I don't know what else you take away from it. I think New Hampshire is just looking for an authoritarian figure to take care of them. I think that's just been obvious. Yeah.
So, as we look at John Kasich, what do you make of? Yeah, I know we have to look at him because he finished second and he's acting like he won by 30 points. I mean, has there been any more bizarre phenomenon in your lifetime than John Kasich pretending to be a happy person? I mean, has there been anything that's been more obviously fake that you've ever seen in your whole life?
Donald Trump. So, yes. But I think it's the hand motions. I think it's the talking with the hands that he does. It just conveys happiness. It's all just a ruse, though. Again, much like Donald Trump, which, just to be clear, I want to be clear, I do not like Donald Trump. I hate him, actually, with like the passion burning of 1,000 suns. I grew up in New York. I was a kid watching Donald Trump and his Marla Maples affair and the tabloid stuff. So I come from a background where it's like I grew up watching him, and now I'm horrified, and I can't make heads or tails of what's going on in the Republican Party, where you would have this man sort of representing the limited government standard. I don't understand how that happened, and frankly, I'm sad that I've been surrounded by a lot of people that have I thought had the same sort of limited government principles, and then it turns out they do not. That's been so I guess I should thank Donald Trump for that, because otherwise I would have been ignorant about all of them.
So, Jay, let's go to you. Chris Christie's gone. Carla Fiorina's gone. But coming out of New Hampshire, who is more deluded about their chances going forward? Would it be Kasich, who is now saying, his communications director on Twitter today saying, hey, listen, we're not even going to really play for South Carolina or Nevada. We're hanging in this for Michigan, which, what the hell? Is it Kasich or is it Jeb Bush, who thinks that it's awesome that he spent $36.1 million and finished in 4th place behind Ted Cruz?
Yeah, it's Kasich has finished, I think, with the same percentage that John Huntsman got in 2012. And Huntsman was smart enough to say, okay, I'm done, because I can look down the road and see there's nothing there for me. Kasich will be lucky to beat Ben Carson in South Carolina, and Carson's campaign is running on fumes, literally. He's clearly delusional. But the other thing is Jeb is the one, like, here's the difference. Kasich is delusional himself because he's such an arrogant ass. Jeb is probably sitting there saying, maybe I should get out of this thing. And he's got people around him, including Mike Murphy, who's saying, no. Our strategy is ready to work. We're going to burn through some tens of millions of more money in South Carolina to get you just above 10%, so that way we can hold out for Florida, where I'm sure you're going to win. We'll spend $40 million there to see if that happens. So, to answer your question, it's easily Kasich. Jeb is the one who is surrounded by people who still think that he can win.
So, Bill, let me go to you, and I guess the million or perhaps billion-dollar question of this primary season is, clearly if you looked at the exit polls, the debate performance for Rubio on Saturday really hurt him in New Hampshire. Something like 62% of New Hampshire voters made up their minds in the last 48 hours, and a humongous portion of them said that the debate performance played a humongous role. So that happened. It's over. It's done with. What, if anything, will be the long-term effects in the rest of the country for Marco Rubio in terms of that debate performance that he had?
I don't think the debate performance will hurt him long-term. It certainly hurt him in the state, and I actually think that the way he responded to that hurt him as well. He treated it like a joke this week, and I think that would have been the appropriate response, to be lighthearted and humble about it. I think it would have been counterintuitive. I think voters preferred that to his doubling down and trying to defend this statement and, point out that Christie kept repeating that he was a prosecutor, sort of thing. I feel like him trying to go on offense actually ended up backfiring, because he looked like the type of politician grasping at straws rather than this young new hope that he put himself out there to be. In this news cycle, I mean, he got swamped by this gaffe in the immediate aftermath, and it just happened to be 3 days before the actual primary took place. But it'll wash away just the way every gaffe washes away eventually. Repeating talking points isn't something that's going to stick. It's not a charge that's going to stick unless he starts dropping that line again. And I'm pretty sure the speechwriter who wrote that for him is no longer including that in his prepared remarks. So I don't think we're in any danger of him repeating it. So I don't see this affecting him long term. There will be more debates. There will be more chances to screw up on the campaign trail. Donald Trump will say something else, and that will become the entire news cycle. And yeah, I'm pretty you'll notice Trump actually played this very well in that he didn't say anything outrageous between Saturday's debate. He kind of stayed low key. Didn't say anything outrageous between Saturday and Tuesday, and allowed the news cycle to eat Rubio alive. And I feel like that is actually a sign that Donald Trump is now, I don't think he was before, but now actually taking the whole prospect of getting nominated seriously.
Which is a horrifying thought for all of us.
Yeah, if he was winning when he wasn't trying to win, imagine what he could do if he starts trying. Same way with Bernie Sanders. Like, Bernie Sanders is actually going to start playing to win now.
So, Jeff, I'm not trying to ignore you. We're coming to you next, but I want to stay with Bill for just a half a second here. So, I agree with you that since New Hampshire, Rubio has been more or less pitch perfect about the debate. Starting with his concession speech where he came out and said, "This was not your fault. It was my fault. I blew the debate. It'll never happen again." I thought it was short. It was sweet. It was to the point. He hit all the right notes. I thought that the jokes, the line that he had about I remembered what I had to say a little too well. I thought that was perfect. The concern I have, he's still making bad jokes about the bottle of water. I mean, do you think that there's any kind of instinct that he has to kind of continue to hang on to this a little too long from what he needs to do, which is just to move on?
No, because the bottle of water thing is years old. This was a fresh wound and one that can be opened up again and again. And the jokes would actually keep this alive rather than him boring us to death with water jokes. I mean, he could have made a good joke like John Kasich's finish is proof that late deciding voters are truly the most ignorant people in the world. Could be something like that, because that's how I see the whole New Hampshire thing playing out. Like you think it's a sign that you're this tough independent, but really it's a sign that you're lazy and have the attention span of a 2-year-old. Fuck you,
right
New
on.
Hampshire.
Hey, so say we all. Let's go to Jeff. Now, I'm going to ask you another question about Rubio, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about you guys' coverage over at the Ace of Spades decision desk. So a question about Rubio, though, is how well does he need to finish in South Carolina realistically to give himself a shot going forward? Does he need to get second really in South Carolina to kind of turn this narrative around, or will another close third like he got in Iowa get the job done?
I think a close third in Iowa would actually still keep him alive. It really just depends on the percentage he pulls. If Rubio gets into the 20s in his percentage in South Carolina, but he isn't actually second because Cruz is like, say, 23, 25, whatever, that's enough to give him, some breathing space. But if he's in another sort of low teens kind of a finish in South Carolina, then his last move is to Nevada. And, he's been spending a lot of time and money in Nevada. It's a caucus state. It will be the fourth primary. If he doesn't win that, and I mean, he's got to win that. A second place isn't going to do if he has a weak third place showing in South Carolina. Then the man is done. And that's a shame. But, as I've said before, I've been a Rubio guy for quite a while now. I see him as certainly our best bet, maybe in some ways our only real bet, absent, Hillary Clinton gets nominated and then indicted by the Justice Department to win the White House. But I can't lie and pretend that he didn't do the damage to himself with the debate.
Well, thankfully, he's not even making that contention.
Well, yeah, but he jokes about it. But the thing is, he makes that contention, but it all just seems a little bit. God help me for saying this as a fan, particularly, but it all seems a little bit robotic. Okay, he's got to stop being so scripted. And I know it's hard when you've practiced your entire life. He's got to find some of that Chris Christie mojo and just sort of start speaking extemporaneous. He is such a good unscripted speaker. I've seen him just talking off the top of his head about random things when there's not that kind of pressure, and he's just a genuinely engaging and intelligent guy. I think that he has the same problem that a lot of people do, who whether they're in politics or doing public speaking, that they know that they clam up if they get put on the spot, and so they practice all sorts of little things to keep themselves going. And that's exactly what happened to him at the debate at the worst possible time. I was talking to a friend who's an editor of a big website, magazine, and he was like, it's almost unfair cosmically. It was like Marco Rubio was possessed by a demon. Like, for this to happen at that time and at that place at the worst possible point it could have ever have happened to him. And it did. And all these polls that say, like, oh, well, New Hampshire voters didn't break away from Rubio at the end of the game because of his debate performance, I don't buy it. It all had to do with that. And because he clammed on that, it happened. Now, of course, I'm going to let you take the next thing, and this is something I really do want to talk about in my semi-professional capacity, is what the decision desk did.
Yeah, so talk a little. You guys actually put people on the ground there in New Hampshire, released some exit polls that turned out to be really surprisingly accurate in terms of the final results. Talk a little bit about how many people did y'all have on the ground? What was the process that you put in place? What did you model it on? How did you figure out how to put that whole thing together?
We had near 60, so 4 dozen people on the ground in New Hampshire. And then I was the leader of our remote team. We actually did almost all of the quantitative work, the sort of the thing that you normally know the decision desk for. We enter data, we give you those results that you see on our webpage. That was me and my team. I was leading them remotely because I was here in Chicago. I couldn't make it out to New Hampshire. I had work responsibilities. But we had people who came out there, some who lived locally, a lot of people who flew out, caught airplanes, and we raised money to allow us to do this. We gave them tablets. We bought or rented iPads essentially to help them do the exit polling. Exit polling is notoriously difficult to do. I think all of us, thankfully, except for Bill. Bill is a child, but the rest of us are old enough to remember how the exit polls in 2004 were in the presidential election, how John Kerry was president for about 4 hours. And then when the actual votes came in, he lost, and it was just a wonderful bit of heartbreak for the left. I was terrified about this when we first discussed the idea of doing exit polling, because it's a very difficult art. but we got it right, and all the credit here really goes to Brandon Finnegan, who is the founder, sort of the mayordomo, the South American, the Latin American dictator of the decision desk. This is his idea. This is his execution. He knew where to put people. He gave us the right way to approach people, to approach voters. We had a very innovative way of asking people to do an exit poll. We didn't make them identify to us who they voted for or verbally say it. We just handed them an iPad and said, I'm not even going to look. You tell us what party you are, who you voted for, thank you, goodbye. And that's the sort of thing that allows people to be honest. They don't have to feel ashamed about saying they voted for Trump or for Bernie, and that's why I think we nailed those numbers.
They don't have to, but they should. They don't have to, but they should.
Right. I have to say, like, I had this moment when we had the rolling numbers in the exit polls, and I logged in to the literally at like 9:00 a.m. So we had the first exit poll numbers, and I saw that the same numbers basically that ended up being the final ones. Bernie had 62%, Trump was in the high 30s, and I thought, oh my God, we are either just geniuses at this or we are fucked. Our reputation is boned. And as it turns out, we're geniuses. And so I'm really proud of all the work that our volunteers did for us.
All right, so let's move on a little bit to South Carolina, and let's go back to Pete, because this is kind of your area. You have a talk show in Western North Carolina, and South Carolina, of course, is in your broadcast area. So, kind of the other $1 million question that everybody's looking at right now is every time Ben Carson finds himself in front of a microphone, he's being asked the question, Ben, when are you going to drop out? And, that kind of operates on the assumption that he's running a political campaign instead of building a mailing list, which is a faulty assumption on the media's part. But, evaluate, if you would, what, if anything, Carson can do to really make some inroads in the South Carolina community. And I've heard some people suggest, maybe one thing that he could do is really just kind of go into some of these black churches in the area and say, look, you're not happy with Bernie, you're not happy with Hillary, give me a look and help increase my profile. You think that's something that might work for Ben Carson, or is, he kind of doomed to another 3-4% finish, carrying on his the limping remains of his campaign for another day?
Well, I guess if he is trying to build the mailing list, that would be the way to get people onto the mailing list, I suspect. I don't know if I just look at the turnout in the African American community, and it is always 90+% for Democrats. I don't understand why the message of limited government doesn't somehow resonate with different pigmented skin color. I don't understand that. To me, it's a philosophy that doesn't really have anything to do with pigmentation. But I don't know if he can do that. It's possible, I guess. I mean, this is the state that elected Tim Scott to the U.S. Senate, but that's a Republican thing. That wasn't really a racial thing that got him there. That was Republican. South Carolina is a Republican state, and I think you're going to have. I guess he can try to make inroads with the religious vote. But Ted Cruz is already kind of there, and in the upstate of South Carolina, where we have an audience. This is Greenville, Spartanburg area, where you've got Bob Jones University, and I mean a college that until about a decade ago was banned interracial dating. So I don't know if there's a lot of room for Carson to actually succeed, but I mean, who knows? Maybe he does go into the black churches and is able to attract that kind of support. I wouldn't be surprised if he got some, but I don't think that's really a viable path forward. And now with the John Lewis endorsement for Hillary Clinton, the Congressional Black Caucus, I think, if anything, a lot of black voters just don't turn out because they just. I mean, I've said this for years. There's only one Barack Obama. He's done great damage to the bench, to the farm team in the Democratic Party, and they don't have anybody. I don't see anybody. And so who emerges that can motivate and galvanize through identity politics and kind of speak to that? I don't see one. And in fact, the fight right now between Hillary and Bernie seems to me like identity politics may actually be failing at the altar of socialism, which I guess, hey, at least we found something to beat identity politics with. Unfortunately, it's collectivism.
Yeah, so let me stay with you just for a second, and let's talk a little bit about, kind of the zombie Jeb Bush campaign. Jeb is
Why?
Yeah, well, he's able to claim a victory of sorts with an 11% showing in New Hampshire because he beats Rubio. Where do you see him going? I mean, right now, we don't have really any polls from South Carolina that have been taken after New Hampshire. What, if any, do you think that he'll get a bump from having finished ahead of Rubio, from having finished? Look, I mean, a lot of people expected him to really kind of finish at 5, 6, 7, 8% in New Hampshire and bow out. Does he have a little bit of, comeback kid in him in the South Carolina race that's coming up?
I want to be careful to not project my own bias onto the analysis here. I mean, I would like to think no. I don't think South Carolina is particularly fond of Jeb Bush. I think they're kind of ready for another candidate. I think they're more conservative. But then again, the lieutenant governor down there endorsed Donald Trump. So South Carolina politics is kind of crazy. I lived there for a while, and I worked there for a while. It's crazy. And there's a lot of nastiness, obviously, and everybody knows the history of South Carolina and the nasty politics in the primaries down there. It is nasty. I don't know. Maybe I would suspect that Jeb Bush gets more of a push from W campaigning for him than probably his finish in New Hampshire. That's just a guess. And on Marco Rubio, I mean, what a state of affairs we are in when a guy is penalized for saying something 3 times in a row, but another guy calls his opponent female genitalia and is rewarded for that. I mean, what does that say about the state of our politics?
One of them is pitching to sane voters, and one of them is pitching to Donald Trump voters. I mean, that's the answer to it. That's the answer to it right there. I mean, But let me go over to Jay. And Jay, you're headed down to this debate on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, when we came into last Saturday's debate, and this is one of the things that was kind of most disappointing to me about how Rubio performed, is that everybody in the world knew that debate was going to feature Chris Christie and Jeb Bush going after Marco Rubio. That was the known fight that was going to occur. What do you expect to see when you go into this debate? What's going to be kind of the headline fight? Who are the two guys who are going to go after each other with the kind of the most nastiness and desperation as we head into this debate in South Carolina?
I think you're finally going to see probably both Rubio and Ted Cruz going after Donald Trump. I think that they know at this point, and this is the way I see it. At long last. I mean, Cruz ran. I thought people were complaining about it because it had kids in it, but I thought it was a hilarious commercial. Not even so much the eminent domain stuff, but the comments about how he donated money to Harry Reid and Pelosi, and then they said Anthony Weiner, and then they showed all the kids laughing after they said Anthony Weiner's name, and people were freaking out because there's kids in here and he's using it. Shut up! It was funny, and the fact that it made people laugh is why people are going to remember it. And Cruz has been kind of hammering on Trump for the last couple of days. As somebody I prefer Rubio over Cruz and anybody else, but I kind of get the sense that Rubio's got to start going after Cruz a little bit more too. I think that at this point, Kasich is not going to go anywhere. I still don't think Jeb is going to do as well as he is, and it's going to be a 3-person race, and they've got to start taking Trump down, and they've got to stop doing it with the he called somebody a bad name, or he's mean, or he's going to do this, or he's a jerk. Stop doing that and start going after the fact that his whole campaign is based on a con, that he doesn't care about the little person, that he'll step all over anybody to get what he wants, and he's done it before. Go after him on Trump University. Get into more detail about the eminent domain. Bring the lady out who actually was going to have her house taken away. He tried to have it condemned. Go at that and show that his campaign is nothing to a means to an end. We don't really know what that end is, aside from servicing his gigantic ego. But at the same time, it's got to be that. They've got to bring him down a little bit on that, because people don't respond to the thing about him being a jerk. I think people kind of find that refreshing because politicians are often so scripted and Trump isn't. So, you look at the debate, for example, Rubio gets in trouble because of what he repeated a few lines, and at the end of the debate, Donald Trump sounded like Charlie Sheen when he was we're going to win and keep winning, and we're going to win. And nobody said anything about that.
So let's go to you, Bill, and I think that Jay raises a kind of an important point, which is that people have been focusing on Trump's, kind of the outlandish things that he says, things he said about Megyn Kelly, making fun of the disabled reporter, all those things. Those fit into the cake. I thought that Jeb Bush actually drew some effective blood against Donald Trump by focusing on an actual identifiable issue, which was the eminent domain thing. Do you think that if Cruz and Rubio go after him on some of the, let's forget the fact that Donald Trump is Donald Trump and look at the things that he says and believes, that it will have any effect on his supporters in South Carolina? Because I agree with Jay that really hasn't been tried all that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Jonathan Last from the Weekly Standard who brought this point up, in that if you want to attack Trump, don't come at him for being un-PC. That's why people like him. Attack him for a strength. He's running on this reputation that even though he's a billionaire, he's running for the little guy. And Jeb Bush was the first guy to use some judo and take one of his strengths and expose it as an actual weakness. Yes, he likes winning so much that he'll run over little old ladies in order to create a limo parking lot. That was a very effective attack, and it was good to see Jeb actually stay strong, follow up the line of attack, and finally win one against Trump. It was like that movie, The Little Giants, where it's like, they would have lost to the little Cowboys 99 times out of 100, but that one game is all that matters. I was really surprised Jeb Bush didn't drop out of the race immediately after that mic drop moment. He was like, all right, now I can concede. And he just left forever. And I think Trump has plenty of vulnerabilities in his past. I'm surprised there hasn't been an attack ad from Cruz's super PAC pointing out Donald Trump criticizing Mitt Romney for being oh so mean to illegal immigrants in the 2012 race. I can't believe that hasn't been made a front page issue. I can't believe it took this long for them to talk about eminent domain. And I think you just keep hammering these points home. It would actually be nice to see some robot-like motion in which everything Donald Trump says, every single guy on the stage goes, yeah, tough guy, you tried to turn a woman's house into a limo parking lot, and when she said no to you, you whined to the state. You went and got Big Brother and told them that because you couldn't close the deal that the state should do it. Just keep hammering the fact home that he couldn't close a deal with the little old lady. How is he going to close a deal with Mexico to pay for this lavish wall? Or we can turn Mexico into a limo parking lot. That'd actually be pretty crazy.
All right, so Jeff, right now, if you look at 538's projection system, they give, I think they give Trump something like a 40% chance of winning the nomination. What's your sense? What percent chance would you assign to Trump winning the nomination? And if not Trump, who would be your next most likely guy to win the nomination in your view?
The big X factor actually at this point now is Rubio. We don't know how or if he will be able to recover from New Hampshire. If he does, he is still bound to play very well in later states, northern states, winner-take-all states. That would, at this point, not be enough to give him an outright victory in any kind of nomination. I gotta say, I don't think that that's in the cards anymore. But the reason that isn't a death sentence for him is that at this point, I'm not entirely sure we're beyond normal historical charted territory here. And this is the thing that's very difficult for people to believe. Every year, every cycle rather, we talk about, well, this will finally be the year where there is a contested convention. We haven't had one since 1976, since Reagan went to Ford and there was a big battle. And I think that this could be the year that does it, because I just don't think that even if it's a two-man race, Trump versus Cruz, I don't think that there's gonna be any outright winner. So I think that it could conceivably be a three-man race. If it isn't a three-man race, and if Rubio does just kind of flop out, then it could easily be a two-man race. I don't think Trump's people are going to leave him anytime soon. It could reduce to Trump-Cruz, and at that point, if it goes to a convention, normally I'd say that Cruz is the guy who would win because he's actually a conservative and a member of the political class. But you hear all these things about how the insiders just loathe Cruz that much that they'd rent the party to Trump. I still don't believe that that's actually true. We'll see. But I think that we may be moving into uncharted waters here at some point very soon.
All right, so we are about out of time in our new half-hour format, so we're going to close with a little bit of a round robin. We're going to put everybody on the record. They always do this on the football pregame shows. There's absolutely no penalty for being wrong ever on these things, and that is just fine with us. The prediction I'm going to ask you all to make is to correctly identify the finishing order. You don't have to give percents. You can if you want. If you want to put an additional level of difficulty on your prediction, the finishing order of the 6 remaining Republican candidates. 6? 5? 5? Let's see. Trump,
7.
Rubio,
7.
Cruz. No, I'm not counting Jim Gilmore. Trump, Rubio,
Gilmore.
Cruz, Bush, Kasich, Carson. 6. The 6 remaining candidates, put them in the correct finishing order, 1 to 6, in South Carolina. South Carolina only. Pete, you're up first as the local expert.
I don't think that's very fair. I don't even consider some of those people at all when I do my coverage. So I do think, unfortunately, I think Donald Trump probably wins South Carolina by a little bit. And I think Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush, those are your top 3. Unfortunately, I don't like any of that. But I think Marco Rubio is fading unless he does something to turn it around. I think he's fading, and then the other people. I don't even want to mention the Ohio governor's name, if that's okay.
That's fine. We'll put a trigger warning on this entire episode.
Right.
Jay, what do you have? 1 through 6. What do you think?
Trump will win. God, it hurts to say that. It's painful. Trump will win. Trump and then Cruz follow closely. I think I'm going to disagree with Pete. I think Rubio's going to bounce back. I know Tim Scott and oh gosh, I just had a brain fart right there.
Trey
Gowdy are very, very popular. He's already spending time with them. And it'll be interesting to see a poll that comes out following New Hampshire to see what it looks like. So then that's the top 3. Then Bush. Who else is there?
Carson.
Oh, Carson, and then that idiot from Ohio, Kasich.
And Gilmore just jumped from 17th to 7th. It's a bounce.
I just want to mention real quick that Jeff just left the podcast early, so because of him, now he's back. Now he's just going to come back in. Like, he can just come and go as he pleases. Welcome again, Joy Behar, back to the show.
I'm so sorry. My computer froze up, and I clicked the button and it X'd out the wrong goddamn thing.
Oh, gosh, this is so good, though. I'm going to go another 30 minutes on this alone, because every time there's a technical glitch, Jeff gets on Twitter and makes fun of me on Twitter for like 3 hours after the show. So, Jeff, go ahead and raise your head a little bit, Joy. And I want you to know that I did a nice thing and put Decision Desk decal logo underneath your face tonight.
I see that. That's actually really sweet of you.
Yeah, and then you came and you ruined the show in the last moments.
Hey, maybe
Aaron, I have a complaint.
Hold on, one question. Maybe Jeff can explain what the heck that giant sphincter thing is on the wall behind his head.
It's a mirror with a little, like, kind of a fan, kind of like, here.
Buddy, there's no mirror there.
It's the all-seeing eye of Trump. It's the all-seeing eye of Trump.
You hear that beautiful
There's
sound?
no mirror. You understand that, right? There's no reflection there. Just a giant
Yeah, it's up here. It's up there.
staring at us all.
Stop fisting your mirror.
I want to know why Jeff gets a red check mark and a blue check mark, and none of the rest of us get any check marks.
Because I'm a rhino. I'm a rhino with no actual party affiliation. You can't trust me. That's why. I play both sides. I'm followed by both Leon Wolf and Chris Hayes. And you've been on Chris Hayes' show, so you are just as guilty as I am.
You have absolutely no proof of that. Absolutely no proof. Bill, let's go to you. 1 through 6. What's your finishing order? And also, are you excited for the upcoming season of Peaky Blinders that you're going to play in with the amazing hat that you just had on?
Nice. I've never seen that show, actually. I just want to take a bow because I am the only panelist who correctly called Iowa and New Hampshire for both the Republican and the Democratic race. Joy had no faith in my man Bernie, but Bernie's going to do it despite the rigging of the superdelegate count. So
Hey, just because Bernie Sanders worked harder and had a product that was more valuable to the peace bill of New Hampshire does not mean that he deserves more delegates. He deserves just exactly as many as Hillary does and no more. Good Lord.
What I love about the whole New Hampshire thing is that I can't get an actual honest count from anybody on how many delegates Bernie versus Hillary actually got out of New Hampshire. Who actually got more? I have no friggin' idea.
Oh, it was 15 apiece. She got was there 6? He got 2 super delegates. She got 6.
6,
or
yeah.
8.
Hey,
Something like that.
Bill, I want to point out, Bill, that I actually did get New Hampshire correct for first and third. I just didn't get second correct. I was hopeful and thought maybe Rubio would keep it together, but he didn't, and he failed. On South Carolina, I'm going to go with Trump number 1, Cruz number 2. I'm going to actually say Rubio gets his shit together and comes back in at number 3. And then I'm going to say that it goes Bush and a really close Carson behind him, and Kasich goes last.
By the way, you can skip me because I think Aaron actually nailed it. I think that's right.
I didn't hear from Bill. I never heard from Bill.
Yeah. So, first of all, I think Bernie loses by single digits.
No way. Bernie loses by 25 points at least.
Nope.
Hey, show me Bernie getting black voters, Bill. Show me Bernie getting blacks.
He got Tanisi Coates.
Yeah, guess what? Actual real people who are actual African Americans living their lives do not give a. The only people who really care about what Ta-Nehisi Coates has to say are white people, and that's
white liberals.
Hey,
Yes.
but isn't Nevada next for them? The Dems?
No. Nevada is third. South Carolina is next for them. That's the same day. But then they have Nevada, which is we don't count
Nevada
those.
like a week before we do.
Yeah, I have no idea why we don't do that on the same day, but we don't.
So anyway, I think Cruz wins it. I think Trump comes in second.
Ooh, I like that. Bold.
Yeah, and I think.
Oh my thunder! That's exactly what I was going to say.
Bold and wrong. Bold and very wrong.
Fair enough. We'll see. I think Sanders loses South Carolina by a smaller margin than Hillary did New Hampshire. And, I think Cruz manages to do this.
Not a bold prediction, sir.
22.
Basically.
No, because the expectation game is so important to the Democratic narrative. And, you saw Clinton out there desperately saying, like, we're going to lose New Hampshire, which she had led by 64 in January 2015. And I think that was really telling that the media started asking her campaign questions, which they acted like they were asking Hillary tough questions when they were out there that day going like, do you just want to lose by single digits? They were trying to game. So I don't think Sanders is going to get any of those single digits things, but I think we'll be surprised. Young black millennials, I think, will follow other millennials, and the college turnout will help Bernie there. So that is,
So Cruz, then who?
Oh yeah, Cruz, Trump. Then I am going to go Bush, Rubio, and then I would go Kasich. I could see Carson being Kasich, or I could see Kasich being Carson.
Carson will beat Kasich.
Yeah, so
it's South Carolina.
South Carolina beat him.
So those would be my my order.
Mine is pretty close to Bill's. I have Cruz, then Trump, then Rubio, then Bush, then Carson, then Kasich. So
hey, you think that new Cruz ad's going to play a role? The one that just dropped today?
I think just realistically, as people come to pay attention, I think South Carolina is going to decide late, not as late as New Hampshire, but I think that people are going to come home to Cruz when it's all said and done in South Carolina, because although South Carolina is a kind of a conservative state and known as that, it's also like, I mean, there's a reason that Lindsey Graham gets reelected there every year with like 30%. I mean, even there's no such thing as a serious challenger to him. The state, I think, just is dispositionally not well suited to Donald Trump, and I think that, and Pete can disagree with me on that, but I think at the end of the day, voters are going to come home to somebody who's more like Cruz or Rubio in the end. I could be wrong. Maybe that's just me being optimistic.
I hope you're right.
Hey, Leon, let me throw something out there on that point, just to throw a monkey wrench in your gears here. So yeah, you have South Carolina. It is kind of a mixture of a place. You have a person like Lindsey Graham, and then you have a hardcore conservative like Tim Scott, and you have Trey Gowdy, who's somewhere in between those two, and then you also have Nikki Haley. But what we saw just this last year with the whole Confederate flag and how we saw the divisions break down there, how we saw people turn their backs on Nikki Haley, and how we've seen Northeastern liberal Republicans respond to Donald Trump, it's almost like the perfect place for him to peel off parts from both those two lanes. He can be peeling parts of Lindsey Graham's coalition that wants amnesty, that he needs amnesty. He can be pulling some of the Southern Pride people who are very
guns.
Yeah,
but it's you see, this is
attack him on guns. That's all you have to do in South Carolina.
People who don't live in the Deep South, like Pete and I do, don't understand the importance that Republican voters in particular in the Deep South place on at least a surface level of politeness. I mean, it's astonishingly important to people, and I mean.
Leon, I hate to bring this to you, but you don't live in the Deep South. You live in Tennessee.
I don't. I live in Tennessee.
Tennessee votes for Lamar Alexander. They vote for
Right. No, Lamar Alexander is a perfect example. Lamar Alexander and Bill Haslam are perfect examples of that. They're ideological squishes, but they
really are the sweetest, nicest guys, and I know it.
Exactly.
Here's the thing, though. You can take very polite, congenial people and put them in a corner long enough to where they come out swinging. And I think that is what
and they anticipate.
Trump rely upon, but that's what we've seen Trump rely upon. And, very nice Southerners started a war once.
Right.
It was a civil war.
I'm sorry. Aaron, the people in South Carolina are not very nice.
I said a surface level. It's a surface level. Like they're absolutely fine with the backroom dealings. In fact, South Carolina is one of the nastiest political states in the union. But they expect you to smile while you're doing it and pretend, say bless your heart, and pretend like you're being a nice person.
Who's better at smiling while they're sticking a shiv in your back than Donald Trump?
Yeah, no, he's not. He doesn't.
No.
There's
nothing subtle about Donald Trump.
Yeah.
No, it's not about subtle.
You got a
it's
lot
about
of transplants.
It's about him enjoying it. And
there
also,
are a lot of.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there were a lot of transplants in South Carolina. There are a lot of people from up north that have moved down south, and I think that has an impact, particularly with Donald Trump. I mean, I think there were a lot. I mean, there were a lot of Democrats, and I mean, I'm in Western North Carolina, where we have like two congressional districts: Patrick McHenry's, who is sort of establishment, and Mark Meadows, who is not, right? And in both of those districts, they're neighboring districts right here, and both of them have massive amounts of Democrats, but they don't vote Democrat. The party went moonbat leftist crazy on them, and so they identify with the Republican candidates. But along comes Donald Trump, who is sort of this populist blue dog Democrat. He says these populist things, and I think that is appealing. I mean, I have had so many people calling into the show that are I thought were Republican voters, and they're not, and they haven't been, and they're on the Trump train because he's speaking their language, and a lot of them are transplants from up north.
Okay, hold on, we're way over time. We're way over time. I'm going to close.
Sorry.
Yeah, let me give you one last thing. The scariest part about all of this is that so far we've had two elections, a caucus and a primary, and Donald Trump has been able to get record-breaking turnout in a caucus, and he was able to get turnout in a primary that beat Mitt Romney in New Hampshire in 2012.
But he's also generated record-breaking turnout against him. It's not coalesced yet.
He has,
but
he keeps winning. And we don't
know
that we don't know that when those other
he's
people,
won once.
We don't
he's
know.
won.
Yeah.
He's won once. So we'll see. We'll see. So let me close off the show with a recommendation for your reading this week. With a recommendation for your reading this week, and listen, those of you who know me know that I would literally never recommend that you go and read Gawker pieces, but you guys who are out there in internet land have to go read the series that Gawker is doing on the FOIA request that they filed with State Department, that they are now in a lawsuit with the State Department over, and they have exposed now at least Mike Allen with Politico and Mark Ambender with The Atlantic, literally allowing Hillary Clinton staffers when she was at the State Department to write their pieces for them, not suggest leads, but literally wrote the pieces, filed under the journalist name, And if we know about Mike Allen and if we know about Mark Ambitter, how many people are yet out there that we don't know that have literally allowed Hillary Clinton staffers to write stories for them in the media? It's an important series that Gawker is doing. Even though they're a terrible publication, you should never read them under any other circumstance. They're doing important work with this, and you guys should go check it out. So this is
Leah, I just want to say right now, I've got to take this time. This is my last chance to confess. I have let my coverage of the Democratic primary be dictated by threats from Hillary Clinton, and I have for the last 2 years. And I'm sorry, but I wanted access.
Did she require you to say that it was muscular? That her speech was muscular?
No, Philippe Reigns threatened me with photographs of horrible things that I did, and they haven't come out yet, and I hope they never do. But I just, this is the time and the place, or not, hopefully this isn't going to break into Politico. But yeah, it happens. They've got us all in their pocket. They really do.
I predict a muscular indictment for Clinton by June.
All right. Well, we are out of time. This has been the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. Let me thank my regular panel, Jeff Blehar, the Ace of Spades Decision Desk, F. Bill McMorris of the Washington Free Beacon, Jay Caruso, thanks for filling in for Neil, and appreciate having you back on the show. It's been good to have you after all these months with your absence.
Thanks.
And thanks, Pete Kaliner, radio talk show host in Western North Carolina. Thank you, Pete, for joining us as well. This has been the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Friends. Thank you, the audience, for tuning in. We hope you'll be back next Thursday here with us.